Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. Sorry for that little wait. I didn't realize I was on that screen. My name's Nathan Harvey. I want to get into some breaking news for today's show. So, Saquon Barkley and the New York Giants were not able to come to an agreement for the running back's long-term deal. The deadline ended at about 4 p.m. today. So it was, I honestly don't think any of us should be surprised whatsoever. Saquon Barkley and the Giants just weren't on the same page. He was reportedly asking for $16 million. The Giants' last offer that we heard was $12 million. So there was really no chance that the two sides would come together. I thought give it $14 million, have everything good to go, $15 million, and then everyone will be on their merry way. It turned out not to be the case. Saquon Barkley and the Giants could not get this deal done by 4 p.m. today. And we have to come to a realization now. The running back market is pretty suppressed because the way the NFL works, the way a lot of coaches and a lot of owners and GMs, they think now, it's a very draft, rent, and let go system of running backs. That's the way the NFL is today. You draft them, you keep them on their rookie deal, you may give them a 2-year, 3-year extension, and you let them go. We're not seeing running backs sign 6, 7, 8-year extensions with the team that drafted them or with any other team for that matter. It's strictly a draft, rent, and then they draft again. That sort of process is how it works out. You need to be a top-tier running back, one that doesn't deal with a lot of injuries, or if you do deal with injuries, when you play, you are so great at what you do, like Christian McCaffrey, that when you're in there, the injuries are not a huge thing. That's why Christian McCaffrey right now is getting paid the most as a running back. What Saquon and Josh Jacobs, and even somewhat Tony Pollard, but Tony Pollard isn't sitting out, what Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley, what they're doing, I actually sort of, I support that. They're trying to show the importance of the running back position in the NFL. I personally don't think, with Josh Jacobs on that team, if Josh Jacobs was not on the Raiders, now the Raiders didn't have a lot of success, but with the way Derek Carr was playing, if he had any other, mediocre running back, the Raiders would have basically no success. They didn't have a lot of success, but they really would have zero without him, in particular because he was the leading rusher in the entire NFL last season. What Saquon Barkley has done for the Giants, though, in particular, and by the way, this was the reaction from social media when it came to the Giants and Saquon not getting a long-term deal. Saquon said about 6 minutes before the deadline, it is what it is, and then Jonathan Taylor reacts as well, saying, wow. But I want to talk specifically about Saquon Barkley and his impact on the New York Giants. Now, I've talked about this a lot on the show, and I've gotten absolutely ripped at it in my comments section about how I know nothing about the Giants or whatever the case may be. I am a context and facts guy. I like analytics. I try to rely heavily on them. Do I think they tell the entire story? No. But do they tell a big part of it? Yes, they do, because it provides context to, a fact that I may bring up or whatever the case may be. So let's get into the facts. When the running backs for the New York Giants rush for over 100 yards, it doesn't only benefit Saquon Barkley's value, it also improves Daniel Jones's value. Because if we take a look at this, the rushing yards, under 100 rushing yards, they have a losing record. Daniel Jones actually has a comparable completion percentage, 65%, has under 200 yards per game passing, and his passer rating is 86.6. When the running backs have over 100 yards, which adds another layer to your passing game with the play action, we see that the Giants are undefeated. The completion percentage is through the roof. Passing yards a game is almost 100 more yards per game when you rush for over 100 or more yards, and your passer rating is about 30 points higher when the running backs rush for over 100 yards. So we could see that the running backs impact, like Saquon Barkley, and Saquon Barkley is the main running back. Matt Breida did not have an insane impact on the Giants, so this is really all about Saquon. The impact that he had on Daniel Jones was absolutely insurmountable. And that's why I feel like maybe Saquon shouldn't have gotten paid $15, $16 million a year. But he damn sure didn't deserve to get paid $12. And also, this could be down to what sort of came out recently. So, before I jump into that, a little tidbit here is Saquon could actually skip all of training camp and not get fined a single dollar amount because he hasn't signed his franchise tag tender yet. Now, the only money he will miss out on is game checks if he decides to sit out the season, which actually seems like a potential opportunity. It seems like this could be a real scenario where the Giants do not have Saquon Barkley at the time of kickoff in September. The franchise tag guarantee. The Giants can franchise tag him at least one more time. The entire franchise tag would be about $22 million guaranteed for Saquon Barkley. The major key point reportedly was the Giants only offered him $19 million in guarantees. So he could have made more money guaranteed just by playing on the franchise tag than what the Giants were offering him. What Saquon Barkley means to the Giants is when Daniel Jones throws for 15 touchdowns, has 22 total touchdowns, and is all about dinking and dunking, who was the main piece of that offense, especially in the first half of the year? It was Saquon Barkley. We look at the first game. The first game where I said on the show, Brian Daboll, Coach of the Year for their comeback against the Titans. It was Saquon Barkley who exploded onto the scene and looked as healthy as could be. Now, what's the realistic outlook here? Well, Saquon Barkley, let's say he sits out the entirety of this season. I think that's an extreme point of view, but that is definitely a potential possibility for the running back. If he sits out all this season, I can guarantee you right now, he's not going to be on this team. Hell, they may even trade him in the middle of the year. I'm not too sure, but what I do know is I do not expect Saquon Barkley to be in a Giants uniform next year. Because unless the Giants are going to pay him $15, $16 million a year, which I think another team desperate enough will do, they will pay him at least $14, $15 million. They may push it to Christian McCaffrey's level at $16 million a year. I do not expect the Giants to pay him that money. I guarantee you, if the Giants do not, give in to Saquon's demands, because he's about 55 to 60% of that offense, he will not be in a Giants uniform next year. I'll bet some money on that. I'll say that there's really no way that there is an opportunity that he stays with the Giants, but I'm going to bring it up again. His impact is clearly shown here. Daniel Jones is a significantly better quarterback when he has a rushing attack. So he's not one of these guys that could overcome no running game like maybe a Joe Burrow can, a Jalen Hurts, even Captain Kirk Cousins. When Dalvin Cook is down and out and injured, or is not having a phenomenal game. We've seen Kirk Cousins here and then. As long as it's a 1 p.m. game, we can see Kirk Cousins actually perform. So Daniel Jones does not have that benefit of carrying a team through a season. He may carry you here and there was one game where him and Saquon were perfectly in sync, about 100 yards apiece. But then in the totality of a season, Saquon, especially in that first half last year, Saquon was about 70% of that offense. He was a key part of that offense, so much so that at least throughout 3/4 of the season, I said, really, if we're looking at the best running backs in the league, I would put Saquon at number one just because of the situation. They had a bad offensive line. Daniel Jones, we've seen Daniel Jones' ceiling, I believe. This may have been the best Daniel Jones we will ever see, and we might not see again, depending on how the season looks with actually more talent and a better offensive line, but we'll have to wait and see. So my guess would be Saquon, truthfully, if because they can't talk about long-term yet until after this season. If they can't get a long-term deal done, or if Saquon sits out, I could see the Giants either trade him in the middle of the season, because why is he on your team if he's not even going to play? At least get some value for him. Or at the end of the season, Saquon will be a free agent. They may tag him. They may not, but I expect Saquon, if he doesn't get his money, to be on a different team next year. All right, let's get into our other breaking news that happened, I believe, last night. So, DeAndre Hopkins has sadly signed with the Tennessee Titans on a 2-year, $26 million contract. That could go up to about $32 million with incentives. I think it's, 65 catches, something like that, 1,050 yards and 10 touchdowns a season to make that go up to $32 million at the end of the 2 years. So did DHop make the right choice? Well, there were 4 major players. Actually, there were 3 because DHop felt insulted by the Bills' low-ball offer in just a ring chase, which I said as soon as DHop got released, I heard a report that's saying he doesn't want a ring, he just wants to get the bag. Well, he did exactly that. He got the bag, but the 3 teams that were really in play were the Chiefs, the Patriots, and the Tennessee Titans. And I actually thought, silly me, the one team that made no sense was the Tennessee Titans. And this was DHop's first tweet since he got picked up by the Titans. I always loved having haters and doubters, but I appreciate it even more. Tighten up, as he said. So that was DHop. And the reason why I thought the Titans were like the only team that he probably wouldn't go to over the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes and with Mac Jones with a comparable offense now, a competent offense with an actual OC, was because of some of the criteria that he listed before, he actually got released by the Cardinals. This was his criteria: stable management, a QB that loves the game, and a great defense. Well, the Titans actually have a surprisingly decent to good defense. The one example that people will probably always give is the game against the Chiefs with Malik Willis completing like 5 passes and they bring the game to overtime. That was very impressive, and especially with Mike Vrabel as a head coach. We're talking about, a really good head coach in the NFL. A QB who loves the game. We saw what happened when the Titans drafted Malik Willis, and I'm hoping I could bring this up for you.
We're competing.
So let's see. I believe we have this. This is Ryan Tannehill talking about, the Malik Willis and how he's not going to help him out to mentor him. This is what he had to say.
We're competing against each other. We're watching the same tape. We're doing the same drills. I don't think it's my job to mentor him.
So a QB that loves the game and he won't even mentor his backup quarterback. As a veteran quarterback, that's actually part of your job, to help the next generation of quarterbacks succeed in the league. And let's bring this up again: stable management. Are we sure the Titans have stable management, especially when we're comparing the Patriots and the Chiefs? I mean, the Chiefs may have the best GM and the best coach and the best quarterback. The Patriots have a coach that has 8 Super Bowl wins, 6 with the Patriots, 2 with the Giants, and Robert Kraft, who is extremely loyal to his players, especially to his quarterbacks. Are you sure that's comparable to what the Titans are? I don't know about that. And as social media said, as soon as, DHop got picked up, this is where wide receivers go to die. We saw Julio Jones go there for 2 years. We saw Andre Johnson go there. We saw Randy Moss go there. And that's kind of where all their careers, basically fizzled out. Now, I understand Julio Jones played for the Bucs afterwards, but he, wasn't the Julio Jones we thought of, injuries and other things. So the right choice would be the Titans. I'm not too sure about that whatsoever. I am very disappointed, though, in the Patriots, because they had an opportunity to improve the one glaring hole in their offense, and that would be at the wide receiver position. Their supporting cast, and I'll bring it up right now, was ranked 26th by Bill Barnwell. This is their lineup right here. They have Juju and Devontae Parker as their wide receiver 1 and 2, with Kendrick Bourne, who's underrated and never gets used properly, and Tyquan Thornton, who actually showed a little bit of spark. He needs to develop, obviously. He's a second-year receiver now. He got overplayed last year. He got played more than Kendrick Bourne in most games, and he got overplayed, and, he was a little over his skis. Juju Smith-Schuster, though, that's the guy they spent $33 million on for 3 years. And they let Jacoby Myers go, who was Mac Jones' security blanket. And instead, you let DHop go to the Tennessee Titans because you didn't want to pay him, pretty easy money. 2 years, up to $32 million. Have that make sense to me, please, because I fully don't understand what the Patriots are doing. I'm going to talk about on Wednesday when I do the Harvey Hour Fired Up, a brand new sports thing, an odds thing that actually puts the Patriots at the top of the Dalvin Cook sweepstakes, and I'll jump in right on that because I just feel like the Patriots are doing something that I think is not going to work out, and honestly, this Bill Belichick thing hasn't worked out very well thus far. So the Titans, what's actually good for the Titans is they're trying to rebuild their offensive line. Ryan Tannehill is a slightly below average quarterback, and they got Will Levis, and they sort of given up on Malik Willis. But Ryan Tannehill has made the playoffs in the past 2 or 3 years, so that is something. They were the number 1 seed in the AFC, I believe, 2 years ago. So that's something. They have Derrick Henry back. It seems to be good. And the one major positive is now they could say they have a wide receiver who actually leads their wide receiver core in touchdowns. The player or the individual on the Titans that had the most receiving touchdowns last year was Mike Vrabel, the head coach. Think about that. The head coach had more receiving touchdowns than any wide receiver on the Titans last year. And now they actually have a wide receiver who has more than their own head coach. So that is a positive. The Titans, though, guess what? They're going to go from 2nd seed in the AFC South to 2nd seed in the AFC South. They're not going to move. This does not put them over a team like the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think could be eventually a Hall of Fame head coach, a Super Bowl winning head coach, the prince who was promised in what's his name? Oh, he slipped my name right now. Was it Trevor Lawrence? Is that his name? Yeah, I believe that's his name. I don't have it in front of me. They have a very good quarterback, top 5 arguably. I think I put him in my top 5 over Justin Herbert. So, I mean, you got a squad there. Now you're bringing in Calvin Ridley. You already made the playoffs, came back by 24 points against the Chargers in the playoffs, and now you're adding another wide receiver piece that tore up some defenses when he wasn't suspended like he was last year. Hey, the Jaguars are only getting better. So this moves the Titans from 2nd seed in the AFC South to 2nd seed in the AFC South. They didn't really improve. Yeah, their wide receiver core looks better, but they have a mediocre below mid quarterback throwing DHop the football. At least Mac Jones was an above average quarterback when he had a comparable offensive coordinator. He was ranked 15th, which is above average. I don't know what DHop's doing. He went to go chase the bag. If the Patriots I don't know if we'll ever get the number that the Patriots offered DHop, but if we do, and it is below this amount, that is a huge, huge misfire on the Patriots side. Now, if it's above the $32 million, that's a personal shot at the Patriots. That's a personal shot at Belichick and Mac Jones. If DHop took a little bit less to join the Tennessee Titans. But I truthfully think the way Bill Belichick has worked over his career, now 2021 is the obvious outlier where he spent a bunch of money in one offseason. But the general consensus for the Patriots is they laugh at other teams that spend a lot in free agency. And that's going to get them 4th place in the AFC most likely, the AFC East. So we'll have to see. But DHop to the Titans, as a Patriots fan, I'm disappointed. Maybe he's chasing the bag. Maybe the Patriots didn't offer him all that money. Good for the Titans, though. You get a Hall of Fame wide receiver who people are saying he doesn't have juice, doesn't practice. We'll have to wait and see. I have a lot of hope in DHop because I want him on the Patriots, but we have to wait to see when the season starts up. Training camp's around the corner, so I guess he was sort of getting nervous, decided to make a choice, and it ended up being the first team he visited, the Tennessee Titans. All right, coming up, the Angels, the Los Angeles Angels, we're talking baseball, are now reportedly open to trading away the greatest baseball player of all time, maybe Shohei Ohtani. They're listening to offers. Also, Joel Embiid recently said that he wants to win a championship, and he may have to leave Philadelphia to go and get it. And I wrap up the show with Levante David saying that the Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield quarterback competition is going to be incredibly competitive. I break that down right after this.
Introducing video podcasts on Spotify.
Transform your storytelling into a show everyone can watch
or listen to.
Easily upload your video through Anchor, Spotify's free podcast creation tool.
So whether you're showing off a new recipe,
interviewing an exclusive guest,
or uncovering the next mystery,
you can now reach a whole new audience with Spotify.
Podcasting just became more than audio.
Create with Anchor, watch on Spotify.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. I'm not joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey, for today's show, but we have a massive show. We got 3 or 4 more topics right in the wings for you, so let's get right into it. The first baseball topic in a very long time that I've done on this show. But this could be the best baseball player in the history of baseball. That's what people are saying. Probably the best two-way player in baseball history if he continues on this track. Babe Ruth is still out there, but Shohei Ohtani, we could potentially be seeing the best baseball player in history. So, reportedly, the Los Angeles Angels are now open to trading away Shohei Ohtani. They're in listening mode, as one report said. And so I looked it up. So, it looks like the odds makers are saying that there are 3 teams that are very close in securing Ohtani and could go after him at the trade deadline. The first one would be the Los Angeles Dodgers. The number 2 spot would be the New York Mets. And the third team would be the New York Yankees. And now, so it should the Angels trade away Ohtani? The obvious answer would be yes. Because what they're going to get is 5 or 6 top 100 prospects. They could essentially, for one player, build another team just with a one-player trade. Ohtani could fill up an entire team of prospects, or at least near it. That's how tremendous Ohtani is. He's going to get between $600 and $700 million because he's two players in one. He is a really good pitcher and a phenomenal batter. I'll show you just how phenomenal he is. This is Ohtani right now. These are the stats he leads in. He's first in all these categories: home runs, triples, slugging percentage, OPS, OPS plus, total bases. This is pitching stats now. Opposing batting averages and hits for every 9 innings. He leads in all those categories because he's just that type of player. He has 34 homers right now and he's tearing up the MLB. Now, obviously the argument last year was who is really the best player. We had Judge, who was breaking AL records with his home runs, but Ohtani is such a dynamic player, such a dynamic two-way player, that what else can you say besides Ohtani is just better because he could do more. And now we see this season right now, Ohtani's just taken over the AL. He's taken over baseball. He's in the history books. So if I had to make a prediction, right? I would say there's only 2 teams really that have a chance. The Dodgers and the Mets. The first 2 teams. The 2 teams with the highest odds. The Dodgers are number 1. The Mets are number 2. Now the Mets just spent they have a $350 million payroll. Or $325, something like that. A ridiculous amount of money Cohen paid. Now, could he spend about $50 million more than any other team? I think he could, and will he? I believe he will. Because if it comes down to it, the chances will be is that Ohtani, A, he's worth it. B, everybody wants to see him in the postseason to see what he could do in the postseason. And C, it's New York. Who wouldn't want to come to New York? It's going to be between New York or LA. Boston's not getting him. I think San Francisco has a shot. They had the number 5 odds. But I think if you had to choose between San Fran and LA, you'd probably choose LA. And it'd be kind of, crazy to have, you go from the Angels to the Dodgers. I just think that would be a cool little story there. But the fact that the Angels are actually now in listening mode means that this will probably get going at least. Could it be at the trade deadline, which I believe is August 1st, or could we see next season if Ohtani decides to leave? That's the big question here. But I really think the Mets, with their owner, who's I think the richest owner in baseball right now, he will probably spend $25-50 million more than anyone else if he seriously wants to get Ohtani. The Dodgers probably have the second best chance, and the Yankees, even though, I don't love the Yankees, they have a shot, but I think if you compare how much they're willing to spend on a player like Ohtani comparatively to the Mets and the Dodgers, I think the Mets probably have the best outlook, the best, situation to go and pay for a player like Ohtani, and then the Dodgers be number 2, the Yankees would be at number 3. The Angels, I'm all for this strictly because I want to see him under the big lights, in prime time baseball moment, when it matters most in the postseason. I want to see Ohtani. And I'm sure, it shocks a lot of people out there. When you say the names Trout and Ohtani on the same team, you expect them to go make it to at least the postseason and actually compete for the World Series title, but no, they just have no luck. They lose games. So I would say, hey, Angels, we have to rebuild this team eventually. We can't just hang on to Ohtani and Trout. So I don't know if you trade both of them, but Ohtani you can get 5-6 top 100 prospects for. Why not go for that? Why not go for that? You could basically rebuild your team with one player, with one asset. And I think that is huge. And I think, honestly, that's worth it. To me, that's worth it. Let's get into our second to last topic today. So, Embiid said recently that he wants to win a championship in Philly or somewhere else. It may not even be in Philly. And this was the quote from one Joel Embiid.
I just want to win a championship. Whatever it takes. I don't know where that's going to be, whether it's in Philly or, anywhere else. I just want to have a chance to accomplish that. I want to see what it feels like to win that first one and then think about, the next one. Gotta have, good people around you and, like myself, every single day I work hard to, be at that level so I can produce and make it happen.
Could we see Joel Embiid again? Could Joel Embiid be trolling us? Maybe. But I do know one thing. I don't think he's going to die on the vine like Dame is. And in fact, Dame's not even going to die on the vine. He wants out. that ring culture that he actually talked negatively about, he's trying to join it as we speak. Could I see Joel Embiid doing the same thing eventually? It may not be this season. It may be the next. It could be the next. Whatever the case may be. Could I see Embiid eventually ask out of Philly? Yeah, I could. Strictly because when it all is said and done, it's about the rings, baby. That's what the NBA is mainly about. It's about getting a ring. It's one of the few sports. The NFL, Dan Marino, never won a ring. We still consider him an all-time great. So, like the NFL, while rings help you tremendously in your all-time greatness scale, if you play phenomenally, you may be up to a certain point, and then you get the separation between people who have won rings and who haven't won rings. That's the separation. But you can get very high. We consider Dan Marino like one of the best quarterbacks in the league, in league history, in the NFL history. Joel Embiid, can Philly win right now as it's constructed? No, because here's one thing. He hasn't made it to a conference finals yet. And in fact, he shrinks in the playoffs. He is somewhat probably considered a playoff choker. He's a choke artist. So could we see Joel Embiid move on somewhere? I want to dive in. Maybe this is just, this is what it is, but I like to entertain intriguing ideas. So the idea of Joel Embiid leaving Philly is very interesting to me because there is a couple teams that could use him. First of all, the New York Knicks. I don't know why people are saying you wouldn't include Julius Randle in a trade. Of course you would include Julius Randle in a trade. Outside of Jalen Brunson, that may be the best piece you have in a trade. So you would add him to a Joel Embiid trade. I did this a while ago when I don't know if I have the trade up, but I actually made a Joel Embiid trade. I said I put Evan Fournier in there. It was strictly for like cap purposes. But really, you would be like Quentin Grimes, RJ Barrett, Julius Randle, 5 first-round picks, something like that. That was my starting. That was my starting point, and I think that's a pretty good starting point because the Knicks are about one really smart move away. Overpaying for Paul George like they could have towards the end of the season last year, that was smart to say no to that. But have Joel Embiid, have a big man who could consistently get you 35. A more consistent piece to put alongside Jalen Brunson. I would say that's a pretty smart move. You have 11 first-round picks in the next 8 years. Use them. I mean, that's what I think. Honestly, the Knicks would probably be the best option for Joel Embiid. I think the Knicks would be very intrigued to go and get him, very invested to go out and get Joel Embiid because he just won MVP. Did he deserve it? You could debate that in the comments if you damn well please. He had my MVP vote, and I'll admit, it's strictly because of the story. I think Joel Embiid deserved it probably last year, but he didn't. Jokic got it. Did Jokic deserve it this year? Probably, but he didn't. Joel Embiid got the MVP. That's on his resume. We have to include that regardless if we agree with it or not. But I do think I think Embiid could be, seeking a trade. Like I said, doesn't need to be this year. Doesn't need to be next year. Could it be the year after that? If the 76ers don't even make a conference finals, I mean, could the Sixers want off of Embiid? We could be thinking about that. Maybe Embiid doesn't want to leave, but if they're not finding any success with Embiid, could the Sixers be looking to move off of him? We could be taking it from that point of view as well. It's all interesting, but we have to wait and see. Do I think he's trolling? Maybe. Could I think there's a little, drop of truth into what he means? He wants to win a championship, which is true. In Philly, could be, or somewhere else. Could that be a little hint at the 76ers saying, hey, surround me with guys that can win. I don't want a fat James Harden who drops like 8 points in playoff games. Now, he did drop 2 40-point games. I understand that, but he's not as consistent as he used to be 3-4 years ago. So I think there could be a little bit of truth to that. But what do I know? What do I know? Let's get into our final topic of today's show. We're flying by in this show. So, Lavonte David spoke recently on Sirius XM NFL radio. This was his quote. He said, obviously, Baker already, he's been the guy, and he's expected to live up to what everybody expects him to be. Baker is great for our locker room. I like the way Baker carries himself coming in, and the way he approaches practice is great to see. So there is definitely some great things to see out of Baker. He's a guy who's done it before, took his team to the playoffs, and has done some great things so far. So the competition with those guys is going to be very, very competitive, and I'm glad to be a part of it. I never thought a quarterback competition between a second-round quarterback last year and Baker Mayfield would be competitive and intriguing to people. But apparently it is. Lavonte David is excited to see his quarterbacks battle it out. This is the realistic outlook of this, though. The starting quarterback will probably be Baker Mayfield. But that's not saying the Bucs are going to be any good. The last time we saw Baker Mayfield, yes, he was dropping dimes and tore apart a Raiders' horrible pass defense. Had a great comeback. It was a beautiful, beautiful drive. And then I got torn to shreds in the comments because I made I uploaded one of the clips from the show talking about how does Baker have another starting job in the NFL, and just so happens that night Baker had that comeback. He looked good against the Broncos, but outside of that, he was okay. And when he had a long-term starting job with the Panthers, he got robbed in the first game against the Browns. That would have been tremendous if he beat the Browns. He should have a couple bad calls. It is what it is, but he looked terrible with the Panthers. He got benched for P.J. Walker and Sam Darnold. What else can you say about that? P.J. Walker, an XFL quarterback, that's what the first overall pick and the guy who won a playoff game like Lavonte David said, that's who he got benched for, P.J. Walker. And now he comes onto your team that has more talent than the Panthers did. Your offensive line, though, you got rid of your bad piece in Donovan Smith, who got a penalty called like every third snap. It was very, very bad. And you don't have a slow quarterback in Tom Brady, regardless of how great he could throw the football. He's not mobile. That could have cost you some games, maybe. Maybe you open up the offense a little bit. But there are some things that I do not think are great for the Bucs. The first one would be you have Baker Mayfield at quarterback. That is, a huge, huge potential problem for you. Because Baker Mayfield as a quarterback, we don't know if that's even that good. We don't know if he's, going to be, efficient, or truthfully, we don't know if he's going to be, starter material. Because the Panthers didn't think he was starter material whatsoever, and so they benched him for P.J. Walker. The next would be your head coach. Now, it just so happens in the NFL, not every coordinator is fit to be a head coach. Josh McDaniels, for instance, I don't think he's a good head coach. I don't think he'll have success with Jimmy G or Brian Hoyer or whoever he gets for his quarterback one if Jimmy G can't go. I don't think the Raiders are going to be any good, even with Jimmy G, even with Josh McDaniels. I think he's a better offensive coordinator. I think we saw that when he was with the Broncos about a little more than a decade ago. I think, truthfully, I think Josh McDaniels is only a coordinator. Todd Bowles, I think, is only a defensive coordinator. And you know what? That's fine to say. Because why don't you play to your strengths? If your strength is bulking up a defense and mainly focusing on that, not offensive game planning, then so be it. That is your job. That is your role. That's what you excel at, so continue with it. Todd Bowles is the head coach. We saw him with the Jets. The Jets may be an unfair test. I'll admit that. The Jets may be a little bit of an unfair test. But you had the greatest quarterback and potentially the greatest player of all time last year in Tom Brady. And the offensive line was a mess. The offensive scheming was a mess. The run game was an absolute disgrace. The offense couldn't get going, and your defense took one major step back. It couldn't stop the run, which was its main piece for the past 4 seasons. You couldn't get it done last year, and really that's why your defense got picked apart as well. Not only was the offense terrible, the defense was bad as well. Now, while the passing game over the prior seasons, the passing defense was not great. It was your rushing defense that was the main piece of your defense. You were top 3 the past 3 seasons, and you come into this year and you drop off. I'm not saying you fell off a cliff, but you were nowhere near the same rush defense as you were the prior years. So everything took a major step backwards when Todd Bowles stepped up to be the head coach. And now you have Baker Mayfield replacing Tom Brady. I mean, this Bucs team won the division going, 8-9? Could we see the same thing from the worst division in football, the NFC South? Could the Panthers get over the hump and make it and win it? I think, honestly, the number 1 team in that division will be the Saints, and I do not think there's any competition. I think the Saints probably win 9, 10, 11 games. I'll have to take a deeper look at their schedule. I haven't looked at their schedule that in depth yet, but I picked the Saints to win, and I think that's an easy pick. The Panthers would probably be number 2, and what I'm hearing out of Atlanta is Atlanta's going to be a great team with Bijan Robinson. So you could very well see the Bucs go from first to worst, and that's what we'll see. That's what we will see. Because I think Baker Mayfield, I had so much faith in Baker Mayfield to start last season, and he completely disappointed me. Now, could we have seen a different Baker Mayfield if he beat his prior team, the Browns, in week 1? Could we have seen a different Baker Mayfield? I think we could have. I think it would have been interesting to see just how that season pans out, or if he still has that very, very poor season if Baker Mayfield goes out and wins that week 1 matchup against the Browns. But we sort of saw what happened. He got a bunch of balls batted. He had led the league in batted balls since like week 13, 14. It was pretty bad because I think he got benched in like week 9 or week 8. So it was pretty bad to see that. But a QB competition between Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask is going to be very competitive. The fact that it's going to be very competitive should not give Bucs fans a lot of hope, because Baker Mayfield was the first overall pick, was a starter in the league, won a playoff game, could have beaten the Chiefs in the playoffs. We forget that Chad Haney had a great run to seal the deal for the Chiefs. They had an opportunity to, the Browns had the opportunity to beat them and move on to the next round of the playoffs, potentially paving their way to a Super Bowl appearance. Well, we'll never know. But was the first overall pick, made it to the playoffs, won a playoff game, and a second-round quarterback who didn't perform well in his only game. But then again, what can we say about that? It's his only game that he played. Didn't look great, and that is going to be a very, very competitive matchup. How would that give any Bucs fan faith? I mean, just thinking about it from my point of view, I'd be worried. Like, for instance, if Mac Jones was the first overall pick, made it to the playoffs, won a playoff game, almost beat Patrick Mahomes, and they draft a guy at the very end of the second round, and all of a sudden it's going to be competitive between the two quarterbacks, I would be like, okay, what's wrong with Mac? What is wrong with Mac Jones? Instead of, oh yeah, it'll be competitive, it'll be fun to watch. Baker Mayfield, great quarterback. What did Lavonte Davis say? Great for the locker room. The way he approaches practice is great. His personality is a little boisterous. One too many progressive commercials. Kind of got in his own head, but that's the way he was since college. So you can't really, pin him on that. That's who he is. Let him be himself or whatever. You say that about a lot of players. But you know what? If I was a Bucs fan, I'd be worried. The fact that Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask, the competition is going to be neck and neck, very competitive to see who gets the starting job. So we'll have to wait and see. Surprisingly, with 5 topics on the show, this flew by. I'll bring that up to say thank you to all you guys. So just give me 1 second here. Hey, there you go. So I'm surprised the show actually kind of flew by with 5 topics. We just breezed through. We got about 45 minutes on the show. I want to thank you all for watching. The start was a little weird, so I apologize for that. Solo show, got new equipment here, trying to figure everything out. I'm trying to change a bunch of things. I said, I think last week or the week before, stuff will be moving, stuff will be changing. So I'm still trying to get this situated, figured out. So maybe the next show, the show after, we'll be back in the continuous motion of having things run smoothly. So once again, I apologize for that. This show, I actually have, a sponsor. It's this own channel. So since we had 500 subscribers, now we have unlocked the ability for memberships. Memberships for this channel actually allows you some pretty cool perks, I think. Now, I don't have the perks in front of me, but I do know. The second tier perk, you actually get to show up on the show. You get to call in. You get to appear next to me if you want. You could just call in if you want. We'll have you on the line. And if you want one-off show, there we go. If you want to get to that next tier, well, you know what that gets you? That gets you if you want. You could be a continuous guest on the show. You could ridicule me. You could do whatever you want. Give your hottest sports takes, and that will be that. So that's a perk. So that's what the show is sponsored by. The show is sponsored by the show. And thanks to you guys, we're able to have 500 subscribers, and that unlocks more stuff for us as we continue to grow here at the Harvey Hour, as we continue to progress as a show, as a station, to make sure everything works out in the end, everything works smoothly, so we are able to give our best and hottest NFL, NBA, and MLB takes out there. So once again, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for supporting the show. This is dedicated to my grandpa out there, my number 1 fan of the Harvey Hour. So thank you for always supporting the show and your continuous support of the show, I might add. But to wrap up the show, my name is Nathan Harvey. This has been the Harvey Hour. Thank you all for watching. Come back on Wednesday for the Harvey Hour Fired Up. It's going to be a great show. We're talking more Patriots. We're talking, Dalvin Cook to the Patriots and why I think that's a horrible idea and why it makes no sense for the current atmosphere of the NFL. But great show. I will see you guys Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube. Can't wait to see you guys then.